Hello and welcome back to the channel, guys, and I just wanted to give you a quick update on all these stuff going on with the cars before I crack on with the actual video itself. In this video we're going to be looking at doing some mechanical works to the Porsche Cayenne. Now there's going to be a change of scenery here because we're out of the unit back to outdoor works, unfortunately, but we're just going to crack on with it and make sure we turn this car around as soon as possible, hopefully before winter truly sets in. Now as for the actual cars themselves, we've got the Mazda MX-5. We've still currently got that at the minute. That has now become my daily drive because the SL, which you'd see me do all the works on and then do all the modifications and retrofits on that, that has now been sold and gone on to a new owner. That was a bittersweet, to be honest, because it wasn't long after I'd done everything I wanted to do to the car that it sold. The MX-5 is indeed still up for sale, so if anyone is interested in that, please drop me a comment. As soon as the Porsche Cayenne is done, that's going to become my daily drive, and then the MX-5 will be a secondary car. But what I'll be looking to do is move that on and then looking again forward to new projects. I've not got anything in particular in mind at the minute. The main objective at the minute is obviously getting the Porsche back on the road. Really excited about that. Really excited as well to show you guys in the next couple of videos what we've got in store for the Porsche. But without further ado, let's get into the video, get these mechanical problems sorted, and then we can move on to the fun stuff with the Porsche and get it built back up. Okay, with that rad pack stripped back out and good access now to the front end, we're going to get to the mechanical fixes that we need to do. So they include changing of the belt. So we've got the serpentine belt that goes around the supercharger, and then we've got the ancillary belt as well. One more item that I wanted to change is that plastic hose that sits behind those belts, because as that belt crushed up against it, it severely marked that. So just want to get that changed for peace of mind. Now with the water coolant pipe, I managed to get that at quite a discount because it's a shared part between the VAG Group range that they put on, I'm assuming, all the 3 litre petrol engines, and I managed to pick that up for just under £45 as opposed to £100+ that it would have been if I'd have got it from Porsche. With the belts that I was replacing, managed to get those for, I think it was about £50 for the pair. Now as you'll see here, one is an original Porsche part, the other is not. It ended up being, though, that the one that is non-genuine wasn't even the right size. Fortunately, I did manage to source another genuine Porsche belt, so I got that fairly swiftly. So it's actually going to have 2 brand new Porsche belts going on to this. When it comes to changing the belts, it's as simple as just getting the lever bar and cranking clockwise on the adjuster pulley, and that'll then release the pressure off the actual belts. You'll be able to just pull them off and then put the new ones back on. Now when it comes to changing that coolant hose, with it being solid plastic, it was an absolute nightmare to get out. So the actual old one, I ended up cutting in half to get that out, to get it past all the rest of the ancillaries, which meant that I then didn't have to take as much apart. But inevitably, I still had to try and feed the new one in and didn't want to damage that. So I did end up unbolting a lot of things to try and fish it through. And it was certainly a job that I was glad I did now and not once this car was built up, because it was really difficult to get that in, even with this amount of access that I've got to it at this point. Okay, so a lot of messing about there, but the pipe is actually back in, all plumbed in, and we've got one of the belts changed. So we've got the ancillary belt changed. Unfortunately, serpentine belt was wrong, so we'll have to send that back and get a replacement for that. And now, because that's on stop, we're going to move to the, we've just clamped off this. As you can see, the differences there in where it should be. You can see it's just kinked there and just cracked the welds a little bit here and here. So that's what we're going to do, straighten that up and then re-weld that bit and get this bit nice and straight again as well. To give us the access that we needed for pressing and pulling, we've taken out the airbox and I've also disconnected the coolant reservoir. That then opens up the strut tower to be able to press against, and obviously we've got the clamp for pulling against on the front end. Unfortunately, I didn't actually get this on film in terms of us getting it pressed and pulled back into position, but I'll summarise what we did to ensure it lined up exactly how it should do over the top of this clip of me the following weekend building that rad pack back up for hopefully the last time. Now I've got all the mechanical parts that I wanted to get switched out and the structural damage sorted. So having the clamp and the press allowed us to, as I say, use the strut tower to press against, to push out. And then what we also found was it was slightly down as well in terms of the headlight bracket section. So we also used a puller to lift it slightly up as well as out. And that works out really well to be able to get that back into its original position. So with a few measurements from the other side, we managed to get that just right. And we've also got the original top mounting bracket, if you like, that stretches between the two, which provides us another good point of reference to make sure that we got that in the exact position that it needed to be to line them bolt holes up perfectly. Once we'd got that into position, because the weld had cracked at the bottom where it hits the chassis leg, it was only slight, but we just wanted to put a little bit more weld on there and then finish it off with a bit of etch primer and gloss black paint just to match it in and make it look as original as possible. That was job done, ready to build it back up again. So with the rad pack back in place, we can now see the gap that's supposed to be between the actual back of the radiators and the belts. So this really shows just how far back that rad pack was pushed in the crash. And now that I know everything's lining up, I was confident enough now to start building back up that front end, getting all the crash bars on, and then once all that's done, we'll get on to plumbing everything in before topping up the coolant with some water just for now, just while we check the system. Then we can get it fired up for the first time in quite a while now, let it run up to temperature and do some final checks and testing, and fingers crossed everything mechanically will be sound, and we can then crack on with putting everything else back on that's meant to be behind this front bumper before moving on to the bodywork. Okay, so just underneath the car now, and hopefully you can see here I've got the AC lines back on. So rad pack is, as far as I'm aware now, fully connected. They're back in. You come down here and there, one that I'm a little unsure on is the oil cooler, which I believe is for the gearbox. It does sit quite a bit out. Now it seems to be seating, but I'm not convinced it's seating well enough, so I'll have to double check that when we have got it fired up, and that'll have to be when the gearbox is heated, just to double check that there's no leaks coming from that. But yeah, that's my only worry. Everything else is now fully connected up, all the hosing, all the water hoses. There's nothing else here now. These are bolted back on, so there's nothing else here now to do. It's all going to be from the outside at the front, which I'm definitely glad of because I've not got much room under here. So final connections up top with the used but new to me airbox in there. This was actually off a Gen 1, so they do fit and will fit anything from 2010 to 2017. I've also temporarily mounted the cooler on the right hand side as well. At the minute I've got some of the mounting brackets broke, but I will replace this before I actually fit the front bumper. I've just not got one at the minute, but it is holding water, so it'll do the job for now. And all the other coolant hoses have gone in with no issues whatsoever, so we're all now fully plumbed in and ready to top that coolant reservoir up. But before that, I've actually got some parts from Porsche. Unfortunately, I had to buy these as they were not the same as the first gen, which my rad pack actually came from. So it's replacement of a few of these ducts and the main louver, which was on the second generation of the 958 as well. Not ideal for the budget, but we need to go on, as I don't want the car to have anything unplugged or not have anything that it should have. And the prices for these were actually quite reasonable. Second-hand louvers specifically were going for similar money to what these are brand new from Porsche. Can't remember the cost off the top of my head, but I will ping it up now on the screen just so you know. So now that these are out the box, let's have a go at putting them together. Obviously I didn't have these to take off the car because they were smashed to bits on mine, so hopefully it's pretty self-explanatory, and with them being new parts as well, there's not going to be any brittle plastics that I can snap, which is always a bonus when you do have new parts as opposed to second-hand parts. Right, so to fit these ducts, there was a lot of backstepping for me, a lot of parts that had already fitted that I had to take off to fit them into place. When I got the car, all this section was smashed to bits, so I didn't actually have to take it off, so I didn't know then the order to fit these. But once I'd got them into place, I also found another issue, which was the framework that I've got in terms of the plastics didn't cross over from the first generation to the second generation. As you can see here, there are some slight differences, and they are really slight as well. It took me a while to actually work out that the one I had wasn't going to fit. And again, this was another part that was quite hard to find second hand, and that meant that I needed to have another trip back to Porsche, unfortunately. So what I had to get was the upper assembly frame, and that came in at £227.85p. And then along with that, I also had the support bracket that sits on that, basically attaches to that. Now that was another £76.01, which again, not great for the budget. I was hoping that with the rad pack that I got, I would have had 99% of the parts that I needed, but it's working out not to be that way. So if you are looking to do a Gen 2 rebuild at the front end, just do bear in mind a lot of the frame parts and ducts do not cross over. And I personally have found it quite hard to get the Gen 2 stuff on the second-hand market. So again, just bear that in mind. There seems to be a lot of Gen 1 958 parts out there, but not so much on the Gen 2 stuff. Okay, so I just want to film a little thing on the actual latch for the bonnet, and the reason I'm going to film this is because it's just took me about half an hour or so just to work out what the hell's going on here with my cable. Now, my rad pack that's come for this must have been for a left-hand drive. That's the only thing I can think, because this cable that's on now is from the original, and you can see the end of that cable and how it attaches there. It's very different to the end of this cable that came with it. The way this cable attaches is it literally just hooks on there, goes like that, and then essentially when that's bolted up, you've got this cable that runs along, and that'll run along to the left hand side of the car. On the right hand drive, it appears that you get this one, and then that runs along to the right hand side, so your cable to open your bonnet is then at your driver's sort of footwell, and that'll be the case for each of them. So yeah, just a quick one there that I wanted to do just to kind of highlight that, because I was taking forever to work out how that end of, well, how the end of this cable going to the passenger side of my car was going to attach onto the other side of the cable that is actually on the driver's side. So that's the reason why. So I've had to use my old cable section there. All functions, both function the same. You could even have both attached and it would still function, because they both show you on the old one here. You've got that one there, which is for the left hand drive, and you've got this attachment here, this attachment just here for the right hand drive. They say both of those function in the same manner, and it's just a matter of making sure you've got the right one for your vehicle attached. Okay, so it's about time we fire up the Porsche. There are a fair few things, as you would have seen, that we've now got plugged in. There's still a bit to go in terms of the front bumper, as I've shown you before, and I've got some water in there. It'll need to be bled somehow, but we'll come to that. Let's see when I fire it up now though. With a few more things plugged in, with a little bit of water in there, what actually comes up on the dash. Hopefully a lot less faults, and hopefully I can keep it running for a little bit, give a bit of charge to the battery, and then check for any oil or water leaks underneath as well. Now we've connected that rad pack back up. Okay, so that's pretty good. Looks like all we've got is the speed limit, display fault, the coolant, which we know about, and the headlight as well, which obviously headlights aren't plugged in. So that's a lot better than what it was. We do have an airbag light on by the looks of it. We'll see whether we can reset that. What I do want to do now is get out, have a look in the engine bay, and we'll go and check to see if there's any leaks or anything like that, any odd sounds, and fingers crossed we're all good.
A few moments later.
Right, I found the source of the leak. It's actually coming from the temperature sensor, and that's part of that coolant pipe that we changed earlier. Fortunately, I do think this is the only leak that we have. We're going to turn the engine off now and know where that is. Okay, so another week on, and I've actually managed to get a couple of parts that I needed now. That includes the coolant radiator that I believe is part of the hybrid system that sits on the right hand side. As I got this second hand, I wanted to give it a good blowout, clear the coil, make sure it would have good airflow. So this was quite satisfying, seeing all the dust and grime being cleared out of there with the air compressor. I also got the replacement water temperature sensor, where we had that leak from the missing O-ring, which is like a rubber seal. It was only actually the O-ring that I needed, but it's only $12.99 for the new sensor, O-ring and retainer clip. So I've got that all as one. Now what I must have done here is, when I've replaced the coolant hose, which it was that solid plastic hose that this temperature sensor sat in, I didn't get the actual O-ring out of that, so I've obviously thrown that away and then just placed in the temperature sensor without thinking and didn't check it before I fired the car back up. So I've now got that, and I can fit that up, and hopefully then we'll have no more leaks, because that was the only one that I actually found, which I'll take that as a win considering how much we've stripped this back. Okay, so we've just put some more water in the system. So I've changed a couple of components now that we had the leaks from earlier on, and hopefully now we've not got any more coolant leaks. So what I'll do is I'll wait until the car gets up to temperature, and then we'll have a look round underneath, see if there's any drips or anything from anything else. Fingers crossed that won't be the case. At the minute we've got very few lights actually on the dash now. Obviously none of the front bumper lights or anything like that are actually on yet, so that's the kind of faults that we're getting, so I'm not worried about any of them. It sounds really nice still, so that's another good thing. I think the fluid that we lost in the gearbox radiator, that definitely needs topping up. It doesn't feel very smooth through the gear changes. I literally think that's just going to be short of fluid, so obviously I'm not doing any driving other than shunting it back and forth at the minute, but I will add some fluid to that. I have got some in the garage, and then once it's on the road as well, I'll do a full gearbox service just to make sure that's 100% and we've got no issues with that. And then other than that, we should be pretty much good to go. It's just going to be a case of bolting parts on now, and that's, to me, that's a bit I enjoy, sort of putting the parts back together and starting to see the finished vehicle. So I'm really happy with what we've done on the inside. So we've got, as you can see, all the Alcantara, we've got the sports seats now, front and back. I've actually managed to retrofit the heater elements into the back seats as well. The only complaint I've got is these came from Spain, and they are quite tough, the leather. It's obviously been left out in the sun, so what I do want to do is either get some new skins for them, which is not going to be ideal because it's a lot of hard work to change these skins. I've obviously done it for the back ones to put the heater elements into those, but we'll see. What I might do is just keep putting some conditioner on there, seeing if I can bring the leather back and that softness back. There are some available for around £700. They're all the way in America though, so that would be the next step. Or there are some seats front and back with the Alcantara inserts, so it's Alcantara in the centres rather than leather, but it would mean swapping over the skins on the rear again, because they've not got the heater element in the back seats, and I really don't want to do that. But I am tempted. It would keep it sort of in line with the Alcantara headlining we've put in. I do like the leather. If you have any thoughts on that, let me know in the comments, and I may well get them if enough people think I should. Okay, so top the fluid up, and this coolant is actually for the battery system, I believe, and hopefully you're going to get a few bubbles come out of there as it warms up. There's a few popped out already, as you can just see there, and on the main coolant system, that seems to be where it needs to be. There doesn't seem to be much bubbling. Get the heaters running full blast on the inside. At the minute I've only got water in this, so I'm going to have to drop all this anyway, so I'm not wanting to go too far with this. I just want to make sure that obviously I've got no leaks, and then once I've done that, I'll drop all the water or the watered down coolant and refill with the ratio that needs to be in there. But other than that, still sounding really healthy. I've got no concerns at the minute. And what I also did is the temperature sensor that we've got in here. So that's now been replaced. Really hard to sort of show you guys. It's that there. That was leaking before because the seal wasn't in there. So that's the culprit that I want to be keeping an eye on for the cooling system, to make sure that there's no water leaking from that. And then other than that, it'll be a case of getting down underneath and making sure there's no other fluid leaks, making sure there's no oil leaks or anything like that. Okay, so I've got the heaters blasting now on full, on high, and I'm just holding the just at 2000 RPM, and it's coming out really nice and warm here now. So I think that's the way I'm going to go for bleeding the system in future. And the only thing to check now is when we do get up to temperature that them fans kick in. As long as that's all good, I think we're good to go. Okay, so just editing this video up now, getting ready to upload it, and I've realised obviously I've not done an ending to this episode, if you like. So just want to say thank you very much for watching, guys. I'd love it if you could hit that like on this video, and also subscribe to the channel if you've not done already. Good news is I've actually, since this video, received one of the packages that I was waiting for, and that's for some massive upgrades that I'm going to be doing to this car. Seeing as you've watched the video to the end, what I'll do is give you a sneak peek of what exactly I've got and what's going to be going on with the externals of this car. I'll bob that up on screen now, and that will be the feature of the next video. I'll look to get that out next week and show you exactly what has turned up for the Porsche Cayenne to really make it stand out. But that is also going to mean there's a lot more work to go at this car before it's on the road. So with that said, I'll see you in the next one.